a powerful blow to Putin's army. Near Pokrovsk, the Ukrainian armed forces have deployed British superweapons that literally obliterate the occupiers' positions. The latest gun is already in battle, tearing enemy fortifications to shreds. The occupiers are suffering huge losses. The Russian defense line is bursting at the seams. How is British artillery changing the course of the battle? Watch in our report.
A 155mm shell pierces the air near Pokrovsk. The gun crew loads another one.
Oh. The smell of gunpowder is my favorite. Plus on the same ones. Come on, quickly. Come on, quickly.
Ukrainian infantry is being stormed by the Russians again. Armored vehicles are heading to our positions. This is not a novelty of the Russian military-industrial complex. This is how the occupiers welded metal plates onto the vehicles to protect them from our FPV drones. But against the British gun, they are powerless.
2 rockets. Oh! Attention! A shot has been fired.
This armored vehicle was stopped with pinpoint accuracy.
The crew of this cannon.
The crew of this gun can truly be called aces. Although we're not talking about pilots, but about gunners, because this is the British AS-90 howitzer, which covers the Pokrovsk direction. The soldiers call this self-propelled artillery unit nothing less than the sniper rifle of artillerymen. It hits the target with the first shots.
This system is not jammed by electronic warfare. It is not jammed by anything at all, because it is autonomous inside and works only for this machine. It targets itself without additional actions. It has targeted, that's it. Then we just fire, press the shot. It has targeted, that's it. Then we just fire, press the shot.
This gun is truly unique because the artillery crew of the 117th Brigade trained on it in Britain back in 2023. This self-propelled gun went through Bakhmut, the Zaporizhia counter-offensive, and even Kursk.
And in Bakhmut, it was the very first. In Bakhmut, it was the very first to enter, the very first. It took everything as it should and started firing flawlessly. Then in Zaporizhia, it was flawless, and it arrived in Kursk after repairs. It arrived after repairs.
In these shots, the AS-90 gun saved our soldiers from captivity.
Weeks captive.
It was last year in the fall. The artillerymen were breaking out from the encirclement from the Russian village of Nizhny Khly and picked up everyone they could fit on the armor. Along the way, more than 30 soldiers and the gun crew made it to our positions, alive.
I'm watching all this from a drone. I see them stop, raise a hand, pick up the guys, load them onto themselves, onto the barrel. I see someone holding on, embracing. All our guys made it out. Absolutely everyone alive. All of them. Not a scratch.
But during the last Korean assault, when they tried to reclaim the gunners, the self-propelled gun hit an enemy mine. The crew was forced to abandon the armor. But the commander returned for it under fire from Russian FPVs and artillery. Azur retrieved his Asia and is now smashing Russian positions in Pokrovshchina. In this section of the front, the fighters say, there's less work compared to Kurshchina.
We suppress them there. We completely suppress them here. I understand that everything is the opposite for them here, as it was for us in Kurshchina. Here, everything is the opposite. They have such a salient here, and we cover them from all sides. They can't raise their artillery or anything.
The artillery unit left Kurshchina without losses, but now they are inflicting damage on the Russians.
By ear, we hear the arrivals from them and from us. That's why we are firing quite intensively here.
The crew reloads the gun again. Now the target is an enemy mortar.
Plus. Come on, hurry. Attention, fire.
2 shots and the target is hit. In this section of the front, they force the enemy to halt their assault and even seize the initiative from them. This is a strategic route that connects Kostiantynivka and Pokrovsk. Although under enemy fire, there are still no occupying infantry there, which means the occupiers have not managed to wedge themselves between the 2 agglomerations of our forces.
Trump hits the Kremlin harder than expected. The new tariff from the White House is a hidden bomb for the Russian budget. The lever of pressure has become the collapse in oil prices. This is a real blow to Putin's military machine. If the collapse holds, Moscow could lose up to 1 trillion rubles. Who will pay for the failure? Of course, the Russians. The Kremlin is already preparing a scenario. It won't be the generals who have to tighten their belts, but the ordinary slaves of the system. See the details.
The Russian budget is bursting at the seams. And this is perhaps the situation where the Kremlin can boldly blame the West for everything. Due to Donald Trump's tariff war, the first thing affected in Russia was the oil price, which is why Putin is already short of money for his own war.
There is now a threat that not only oil will become cheaper, but all raw materials that are distributed somewhere in the world and Russia will be left without money. And without money, it is, well, how should I say, unstable, because then you can't support the regional budget. And the destruction of life begins. And when there is no money, even a city like Moscow can become dilapidated and decline.
Analysts from the Financial Times write that the Russian military budget is under threat. They calculated that if oil prices remain at the current level, the budget in 2025 could be 2.5% to 3% less than expected.
Gas and oil make up a third of all revenue. In general, raw materials account for 70 to 90%. But again, 3% is not that much, because there is a reserve fund they can draw from, and there is the possibility to borrow. They actually have 30% borrowing, which is not much. Yes, indeed, they plan to sell oil at 70, but it has been selling for 50 for several days now. And if this continues, they will feel it in their budget in a couple of months.
Experts believe this could lead to three scenarios: either force the Kremlin to increase borrowing, compel them to cut spending, or start using up the remaining reserves. However, this will not quickly lead to a direct deficit in the military budget. The first ones Russia will start saving on will, of course, be the Russian people.
Kalashnikov rifles are made from steel, wood, and gunpowder is also made, you know, from cotton. And for this, neither dollars nor oil nor... it absolutely doesn't matter how much they cost. And this will be financed from the budget in rubles. For a problem to start. In the civilian sector, nothing is needed. They have already begun. They started last year when oil prices were quite decent. And the lower the oil price falls and the longer it stays there, the more problems there will be for civilian sector enterprises and the population.
And these problems have already been announced. For example, those who have placed too much trust in the Russian banking system are facing major problems in the near future. They haven't yet dared to blatantly seize deposits, but soon, it seems depositors will be deprived of the ability to manage their own money.
One of the options is, in essence, to practically force Russians to give up their savings for a new privatization. That is, the state takes away a private business company. Currently, this is being done very actively, and then they will try to reprivatize these enterprises that were nationalized after privatization. And the idea is to somehow force the population to participate in this and actively invest their 55 trillion rubles in the new privatization. Such proposals are being voiced.
But even such scenarios are not guaranteed to save the Russian economy from further collapse. Representatives of the central bank, speaking at a meeting with Prime Minister Mishustin, presented a document stating that Russia could now face a similar situation of long-term and significant oil price declines, almost as was experienced in the early 80s. Back then, I remind you, the decline lasted almost 2 decades.
On this path of 18 years, if we recall what happened on this road, the Soviet Union collapsed. It found itself as a bankrupt country, it had no money, and there were extremely difficult 90s in the Russian Federation, because Russia has nothing except oil as a source of wealth. Everything else is in general insignificant to me, and with a sharp drop in oil prices, living in Russia becomes very difficult.
It is precisely on the brink of repeating those very turbulent 90s that today's Russia stands, yes, analysts assure, which in itself could raise the question of the country's very existence in principle.
The Soviet Union, with low prices, lasted well about 5 years, right? Well, consider that if it starts now, then in general, by around the year 2030, Russia might begin to crumble because it will not have any other sources of income.
For now, Putin's Russia is only at the beginning of this path, from which it stubbornly refuses to deviate. As of this year, analysts predict that Russia will fall short by about 1 trillion rubles, and at the same time, reduce GDP growth rates by 0.5%.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now. The Ukrainian armed forces struck at the very heart of the enemy. The headquarters of Russian officers in the occupied Seledovo was burned to ashes. The Russian command is in panic. Near Pokrovsk, it's hell for the occupiers. Ukrainian fighters shattered enemy positions, leaving them no chance. And the UAVs of the Ukrainian armed forces are relentless. Reconnaissance, targeting, and precision strikes are eliminating the invaders. All the details are coming up next.
This is how our aviation destroyed Russian officers in the occupied Selidovo.
Everything is destroyed. A huge crater marks the command post where the Russians reported that the entire officer staff was killed.
This strike by our missile was recorded by a drone operated by Bailey. Now the pilot has a new mission: to find as many enemy guns as possible before they start raining shells on our positions near Pokrovsk. At night, one of these was detected just seconds before it fired.
It turned out to be a Grad, fully loaded. And now there will be quite an impressive strike.
Wow, how beautiful!
Yes, the drone flew in, sacrificing itself.
Ukrainian soldiers surpass the enemy in their ability to operate reconnaissance drones. And this is one of the reasons why the 25th Airborne has not yet allowed the Russians into Pokrovsk. In fact, it's not necessary to sit exclusively in trenches at the front. You can do it like this, in comfort, in a warm van, in a mobile station, observing the enemy, even deep in their rear, watching movements, searching for targets to later destroy. White gives the command to take off. Next to the vans is the already equipped Shark aircraft. Here, in the field where it takes off, it is operated by the paratrooper, Ultra. She is the third woman in the Ukrainian armed forces working with such a drone. In civilian life, she is a geography teacher from Dnipro, Svetlana Alexandrovna.
We are now very carefully and securely attaching our parachute.
Svetlana's students are still her main motivation and significant support. So she is in the brigade that covers the main city on the enemy's path to Dnipropetrovsk, doing everything possible to prevent the enemy from reaching her hometown.
Do you see these nets? These are all things my students, my graduates, have given me. I have a student. She is already a graduate. Today she wrote to me, "Svetlana Alexandrovna, hello. How are you? I was informed that there are more nets." Such moments, as you understand, make it worth being here. Look, a girl sent juices, a box of juices. And it was written, "These are the juices my classmates gave me for their birthdays. These are for you." Do you understand? The child was treated and she saved them for me. The warrior of Matalisa.
Ultra places the drone on the catapult and it flies into the sky over Pokrovsk. And almost immediately detects an enemy gun firing at our positions.
Shot fired from the enemy gun.
Oh, did you capture it? Is something already working out?
Copy. We captured the shot from the enemy gun. Now we are transmitting the coordinates and the photo.
A few mouse clicks, and the pilots send the coordinates of the enemy gun to the headquarters. Vasily hears them, which means things are about to heat up.
I adore him. When no one can work properly. Vasily, just a minute and everything will be very good. He's the one who makes the action very bright, very bright. Vasily will always take down the enemy. Oh, there's an explosion.
The enemy gun has fallen silent. That's already a good result. But we're losing video connection with Shark. We need to save the aircraft because the enemy realized they were being watched and turned on strong jamming. The pilots are trying to move the drone to a safe zone. The crew's skill is proven. Shark is returning to the ground. Ultra catches it. Shark's mission for today is complete. It will be replaced in the sky by night reconnaissance drones. But Ultra will not be resting. She is collecting video from the aircraft to continue an optional geography lesson for her students online, because she wants to show the class the beauty of Donbas, not only from paper maps in books, but also from a bird's eye view.
There was a moment in class when we were studying mineral resources. The children asked, "What are spoil heaps?" I tell the pilot, "Film the spoil heaps from all places so I can show them later in class."
That's all. Well, for more fiery news from the front, watch the next episode.